Have you ever dreamed about someone who has passed away? That person who has left the physical plane, but suddenly appears clearly in your dreams. What does this really mean? Is it just a manifestation of the subconscious, or is there something much deeper behind it? According to the teachings of Padre Pio, dreams about loved ones who have passed away can carry powerful messages from the spiritual plane. But why do we dream about those who have passed away? Are they trying to tell us something? Padre Pio believed that these dreams are more than just memories, they can be spiritual communications, signs that the souls of the deceased continue to be present and involved in our lives in mysterious ways. Dreams always had a profound spiritual dimension for Padre Pio. He believed that the dream world was often a channel through which God and the spirit world could communicate with us. This belief is especially significant when we talk about dreams about people who have already passed away. According to the saint, these dreams are not mere manifestations of the unconscious, but can be a means by which the souls of those we love send us messages. When we dream about a person who has passed away, Padre Pio suggested that we should not ignore this experience, as it may have a greater purpose. In many cases, he believed that these dreams were answers to prayers made by the people who remained behind, or even requests for intercession from these souls. They can also be signs that these souls are at peace, or that they are trying to comfort us during difficult times in our lives. This type of communication is a reminder that, although our loved ones have physically left, their spiritual presence continues to accompany us. At this point, type, "Padre Pio, bless me in the comments for lifelong blessings." Furthermore, for Padre Pio, these dreams can be ways of alerting us to something important, perhaps a significant decision that we need to make, or a situation that requires more attention. He always recommended that, after dreaming about someone who has passed away, we should pray for that person and seek discernment to better understand what God or that soul is trying to tell us. A practical example is that of Teresa, who repeatedly dreamed about her grandmother, always in a flowery garden. In the dreams, her grandmother seemed peaceful and smiling, which Teresa initially did not understand. After praying for discernment, she realized that the dream was a way for her grandmother to convey peace and encouragement to her to deal with a difficult situation in her personal life. This understanding brought comfort and relief to Teresa, confirming Padre Pio's belief that dreams about the deceased can be true spiritual gifts. For Padre Pio, dreams about deceased people have a very special spiritual meaning. He believed that these dreams are more than just reflections of memory or the subconscious. They are often manifestations of a continuing spiritual presence in our lives. According to Padre Pio, death does not break the bonds of affection, and the souls of those we love can appear in dreams as a way to guide, comfort, or even warn us. These dreams can be a way for the deceased to communicate with us, showing that they continue to care for us. For example, dreaming about someone who is peaceful and happy can be a sign that their soul is resting in the other plane. In other cases, dreams about the deceased can be an answer to our prayers, showing that our pleas for them are being heard. In addition, Padre Pio also believed that these dreams can carry important messages. They can appear to warn us about something that is happening in our lives or even to protect us from some danger. For him, nothing happens by chance, and it is necessary to pay attention to the details of these dreams. An example of this is that of Carlos, who dreamed about his deceased brother warning him about an important choice he was about to make. In the dream, his brother advised him to rethink his decision. After reflecting and praying, Carlos realized that the dream was a sign that he should change his path. He followed the advice and avoided what could have been a harmful decision. This example illustrates how dreams about deceased people can be true spiritual guides in our lives. In addition to providing comfort and a sense of spiritual presence, Padre Pio firmly believed that dreams about the deceased can serve as divine signs or even warnings. He taught that these dreams, far from being merely reflections of our subconscious, can be direct communications from the spiritual world. The soul of a deceased person, in certain cases, may come to us during sleep to convey an important message or to warn us about something significant. Often, these messages are loaded with symbolism and guidance meant to protect us or prepare us for future situations. In his spiritual advice, Padre Pio emphasized the importance of paying attention to the details of these dreams. A visit from someone who has already passed away may, for example, relate to an important choice we need to make in life. If the deceased appears anxious or insistent in conveying a message, it may indicate the urgency of a particular action or decision. These dreams can even reveal areas in our lives where we might be in danger or about to make a mistake. By noticing these nuances, we can open ourselves to divine protection. Padre Pio also highlighted that such dreams often come during times of great doubt or uncertainty, moments of transition, or when facing difficult choices. It is possible for a deceased soul to appear to give advice, reminding us that we are not alone in our decisions. The spiritual guidance received may come through symbols or direct words, but it always requires discernment and prayer to be fully understood. The emotional state of the deceased person in the dream can also offer significant clues about the message. If the person appears peaceful, it may be a sign that they are at rest and interceding for us in heaven. On the other hand, if the deceased seems distressed, it could indicate an urgent warning they wish to convey. Padre Pio advised that in such cases, we should pray deeply to understand the meaning of the dream and seek God's help in interpreting the message. An example of this teaching is Anna's story. Anna dreamed several times about her deceased mother, who appeared worried and seemed to be warning her about something. Anna, who was about to make a large financial investment, began paying closer attention to the details of the dream. Through prayer and reflection, she realized that her mother was warning her about the risks of the investment. Anna ultimately decided not to go through with it and later discovered that the investment would have resulted in a significant financial loss. This example shows how dreams about deceased loved ones, when interpreted correctly, can protect us from danger and guide us in times of uncertainty. Padre Pio taught that the divine warnings and signs present in dreams are gifts from God meant to protect our lives. Ignoring these signs can mean missing out on valuable guidance, while paying attention to them can be a way to receive divine protection and help in ways we might not fully understand. How to interpret dreams about the deceased. Interpreting dreams about deceased people is a delicate task. Padre Pio believed that these dreams should be taken seriously, viewing them as spiritual opportunities where the divine plan connects directly with our lives. However, discerning their true meaning requires a thoughtful spiritual approach and often prayer. The first step Padre Pio recommended is paying attention to the details of the dream. What was the atmosphere like? Was the deceased person happy, sad, or trying to communicate something clearly? These small elements can provide important clues about the nature of the dream and its potential meaning. If the person in the dream appears calm and at peace, it may indicate that they are at rest and want to convey a message of comfort. Conversely, if they seem worried or convey a sense of urgency, it may signify an important message or warning that needs careful interpretation. Symbols within the dream are also a critical element of interpretation. Often, the messages conveyed are not direct but symbolic. Objects, scenes, or actions that may initially seem unrelated can carry deep spiritual meaning. Padre Pio emphasized the necessity of prayer in this process, explaining that it is through prayer that we can ask God for the discernment needed to understand the message being shown to us. Dreams about deceased people can also reflect aspects of our own lives, drawing attention to issues we need to address, perhaps an unresolved emotional matter, a request for forgiveness, or a need for reconciliation with someone. Padre Pio believed that these dreams often serve as a call to spiritual action. They can guide us toward resolving disputes, making changes in our attitudes, or taking steps we may have been avoiding. Through these experiences, Padre Pio reminded us that God's guidance and the connection with our loved ones continue, even beyond the physical plane. By remaining open to these signs, we can align ourselves more closely with the divine plan and find spiritual clarity in moments of doubt or uncertainty. For example, a woman named Laura constantly dreamed about her father, who had already passed away. In her dreams, he always appeared holding a notebook. Initially, Laura did not understand the meaning. However, after several nights of recurring dreams, she decided to pray for understanding. During her prayer, she remembered a request her father had made before he passed away. He had asked her to continue writing her childhood memories, a project she had set aside due to lack of time. Laura interpreted the dream as a spiritual reminder to honor her father's wish and resume the project. This example illustrates how dreams can serve as guidance, not only comforting us, but also leading us to actions that positively impact our lives. Padre Pio believed that by paying attention to dreams about the deceased, we can better understand what God is trying to show us and how these messages can guide us on our spiritual path. To correctly interpret such dreams, it is essential not only to observe the emotions and symbols within them, but also to maintain a life of prayer. What to do after dreaming about a deceased person? After having a dream about someone who has passed away, it is important to act with wisdom and discernment, something Padre Pio always emphasized. For him, these dreams should not be dismissed as mere coincidences, but embraced as spiritual opportunities. The first thing Padre Pio recommended was to pray for the soul of the person who appeared in the dream. Even if the dream was peaceful and comforting, prayer serves to strengthen the spiritual bond between us and those who have passed away. Praying for the dead is a tradition in the Christian faith, and Padre Pio taught that it can bring comfort to both the dreamer and the soul of the deceased. In addition to prayer, reflecting deeply on the content of the dream is essential. If the dream seemed to convey a message or a request, it is important to pay attention to it. For example, if the person in the dream appeared worried or tried to convey a warning, this could be a form of divine protection. In such cases, prayer should not only be for the soul of the deceased, but also for discernment to understand the meaning of the dream. The most important thing, according to Padre Pio, is not to ignore these experiences. They may be ways for God to communicate something significant to us. Responding to the call of the dream. Many dreams about deceased people may bring a call to action, whether it's reconciliation, forgiveness, or fulfilling a specific request. If the person in the dream asks for forgiveness or conveys a clear message, it is important to respond accordingly. Reconciliation, whether with oneself or others, can be a way of answering this spiritual call. For Padre Pio, there are no coincidences when it comes to spiritual communication. We must always remain attentive to the signs God sends us. An example of this is the story of Marcos, who dreamed of his deceased father asking him to reconnect with his family. Marcos's relationship with his brothers had deteriorated after his father's death, and he had distanced himself from everyone. In the dream, his father appeared distressed, asking him to reconcile with his brothers. After reflecting and praying, Marcos decided to follow the advice given in the dream. He reached out to his family, restoring ties and finding a renewed sense of inner peace. This example demonstrates that dreams about the deceased can not only provide comfort, but also serve as calls to transformation and healing. In addition to prayer and reflection, Padre Pio also recommended sharing these dreams with trusted individuals or a spiritual director. Speaking about these experiences can offer clarity, support, and additional insight into the spiritual messages they may contain. For example, a woman named Laura constantly dreamed about her father, who had already passed away. In her dreams, he always appeared holding a notebook. Initially, Laura did not understand the meaning. However, after several nights of recurring dreams, she decided to pray for understanding. During her prayer, she remembered a request her father had made before he passed away. He had asked her to continue writing her childhood memories, a project she had set aside due to lack of time. Laura interpreted the dream as a spiritual reminder to honor her father's wish and resume the project. This example illustrates how dreams can serve as guidance, not only comforting us, but also leading us to actions that positively impact our lives. Padre Pio believed that by paying attention to dreams about the deceased, we can better understand what God is trying to show us and how these messages can guide us on our spiritual path. To correctly interpret such dreams, it is essential not only to observe the emotions and symbols within them, but also to maintain a life of prayer. What to do after dreaming about a deceased person? After having a dream about someone who has passed away, it is important to act with wisdom and discernment, something Padre Pio always emphasized. For him, these dreams should not be dismissed as mere coincidences, but embraced as spiritual opportunities. The first thing Padre Pio recommended was to pray for the soul of the person who appeared in the dream. Even if the dream was peaceful and comforting, prayer serves to strengthen the spiritual bond between us and those who have passed away. Praying for the dead is a tradition in the Christian faith, and Padre Pio taught that it can bring comfort to both the dreamer and the soul of the deceased. In addition to prayer, reflecting deeply on the content of the dream is essential. If the dream seemed to convey a message or a request, it is important to pay attention to it. For example, if the person in the dream appeared worried or tried to convey a warning, this could be a form of divine protection. In such cases, prayer should not only be for the soul of the deceased, but also for discernment to understand the meaning of the dream. The most important thing, according to Padre Pio, is not to ignore these experiences. They may be ways for God to communicate something significant to us, responding to the call of the dream. Many dreams about deceased people may bring a call to action, whether it's reconciliation, forgiveness, or fulfilling a specific request. If the person in the dream asks for forgiveness or conveys a clear message, it is important to respond accordingly. Reconciliation, whether with oneself or others, can be a way of answering this spiritual call. For Padre Pio, there are no coincidences when it comes to spiritual communication. We must always remain attentive to the signs God sends us. An example of this is the story of Marcos, who dreamed of his deceased father asking him to reconnect with his family. Marcos's relationship with his brothers had deteriorated after his father's death, and he had distanced himself from everyone. In the dream, his father appeared distressed, asking him to reconcile with his brothers. After reflecting and praying, Marcos decided to follow the advice given in the dream. He reached out to his family, restoring ties and finding a renewed sense of inner peace. This example demonstrates that dreams about the deceased can not only provide comfort, but also serve as calls to transformation and healing. In addition to prayer and reflection, Padre Pio also recommended sharing these dreams with trusted individuals or a spiritual director. Speaking about these experiences can offer clarity, support, and additional insight into the spiritual messages they may contain. These dreams, Padre Pio taught, are not confined to grand, dramatic revelations. Sometimes they whisper subtle messages, inviting us to make small yet meaningful changes in our lives. Such was the case for a man named Daniel, who repeatedly dreamed of his late grandmother sitting beside a candle. The candle's flame would flicker, as though struggling to stay lit, and his grandmother would look at him with a gentle, expectant expression. At first, Daniel dismissed the dreams as ordinary reflections of his subconscious, but they persisted. One evening, after weeks of these recurring visions, Daniel decided to pray deeply, asking for clarity about their meaning. As he prayed, he remembered how his grandmother had always encouraged him to rekindle his faith, a flame that had dimmed in the busyness of his daily life. Moved by this realization, Daniel began attending church again and embraced moments of quiet prayer each evening. In time, the dreams ceased, but Daniel felt his grandmother's presence more strongly than ever, as though her message had fulfilled its purpose. He found a renewed sense of peace and direction, realizing that even the smallest gestures, a flickering candle, a loving gaze, could carry profound spiritual significance. The impact of small actions. Padre Pio often spoke of how spiritual guidance could inspire transformative action. He believed that even the smallest acts, when rooted in faith, could create ripples of positive change in our lives. Dreams about the deceased, then, serve not only as reminders of their presence, but also as calls to reignite our connection with God and our purpose. For another individual, Rosa, this came in the form of a dream about her best friend, who had passed away unexpectedly. In the dream, her friend appeared with an outstretched hand, offering her a book filled with blank pages. Rosa was perplexed, but sensed that the dream carried a deeper meaning. Through prayer and reflection, she understood it as a message to fill the pages of her life with new experiences, courage, and gratitude rather than lingering in grief. Inspired, Rosa began volunteering at a community center, an act that brought her fulfillment and a sense of healing she hadn't thought possible. Turning dreams into spiritual action. These stories remind us that dreams are not passive events. They are active invitations to engage with our spiritual journey. By listening, praying, and taking meaningful steps in response, we align ourselves with divine purpose. Padre Pio taught that God often uses the ordinary dreams, symbols, and emotions to guide us in extraordinary ways. The question, then, is not whether these dreams matter, but whether we are prepared to hear their call. Like Daniel and Rosa, we each have the ability to turn the whispers of the spiritual realm into meaningful transformations, drawing us closer to God and to those who continue to watch over us from beyond. Padre Pio often reminded his followers that spiritual transformation begins with openness and openness to listen, reflect, and act. Dreams about the deceased serve as gentle nudges, reminding us of what truly matters in life. They remind us that love, faith, and purpose transcend the boundaries of this world. For a young man named Gabriel, a dream about his late mother became the catalyst for a profound personal transformation. Gabriel had been feeling lost, consumed by work and material pursuits. In his dream, his mother appeared in a warm and radiant garden, her face full of peace. She held out her hand and simply said, "Come home." The dream lingered with him, its meaning unclear at first. But as he prayed and reflected, he understood that home wasn't just a physical place, it was a return to his faith, his family, and the values his mother had taught him. Moved by this realization, Gabriel began spending more time with his family, prioritizing meaningful relationships over his relentless pursuit of success. He also returned to his spiritual practices, finding solace in prayer and moments of gratitude. Over time, he felt his mother's presence as a quiet, guiding force, reminding him to stay true to himself and his purpose. Healing through reconnection. Dreams about the deceased can also guide us toward healing relationships that were left unresolved in life. Such was the case for Elena, who had a strained relationship with her father before his passing. After his death, she was plagued with guilt, wishing she had made amends. One night, she dreamed of her father standing by a calm river, smiling and beckoning her to join him. In the dream, he spoke no words, but his presence radiated forgiveness and love. The dream moved Elena deeply. She took it as a sign to forgive herself and seek peace. Following Padre Pio's teachings, she began to pray daily for her father's soul and for her own healing. This practice brought her a sense of release and comfort, as though her father's message in the dream had given her permission to let go of the guilt she carried. Through this process, Elena not only found inner peace, but also began mending other strained relationships in her life. She realized that her father's dream was not just about their bond. It was an invitation to embrace forgiveness and healing in all aspects of her life, an ongoing journey. Padre Pio emphasized that dreams about the deceased are part of an ongoing journey of faith and growth. They remind us that our connection to loved ones and to God is unbroken, even in the face of loss. The messages we receive in these dreams often have layers of meaning, urging us to act not only for the benefit of those who have passed, but also for our own spiritual development. Whether the message is one of comfort, a call to action, or a warning, the response requires discernment, prayer, and trust in God's guidance. Through these dreams, we are reminded that the spiritual realm is not distant, but deeply intertwined with our everyday lives. As Gabriel, Elena, and others have experienced, responding to these dreams with faith can bring profound transformation. They invite us to make peace with the past, strengthen our present, and prepare for the future with courage and purpose. What dreams are asking of you? The next time you dream of a loved one who has passed away, consider what the dream may be asking of you. Is it urging you to reconnect with your faith, to heal a broken bond, to make a change in your life that you've been avoiding? Padre Pio believed that these dreams are not random occurrences, but divine opportunities to grow closer to God and to the spiritual realm. By embracing these moments with reflection, prayer, and action, we can find guidance, healing, and a deeper connection to our spiritual journey. The unseen connections in dreams. Padre Pio often emphasized that the spiritual plane is not separated from our earthly existence, but intricately connected to it. Dreams about the deceased provide glimpses into this connection, reminding us that our loved ones continue to care for us and guide us in ways we may not always understand. One powerful story is that of Isabella, a teacher who dreamed of her late grandfather. In her dream, he appeared at her classroom door, pointing silently to a clock on the wall. Confused but intrigued, Isabella reflected on the dream and prayed for clarity. Over the following weeks, she noticed how often she was rushing through her lessons and how little time she was dedicating to truly listening to her students. The dream became a metaphor for her hurried life. Inspired by her grandfather's silent gesture, she began to slow down, pay attention to her students' needs, and find moments of stillness in her day. Over time, Isabella not only transformed her teaching, but also found a renewed sense of purpose and joy in her work. This story illustrates how dreams, even when subtle or seemingly mundane, can be profound calls to action. For Padre Pio, these moments were reminders that our lives are intertwined with the spiritual realm, where guidance is always available if we are willing to listen. Dreams as warnings. While many dreams about the deceased offer comfort, others carry warnings that require immediate attention. Padre Pio taught that God, through the souls of our loved ones, can use dreams to alert us to dangers we might otherwise overlook. A compelling example is that of Matteo, a young man who dreamed of his deceased uncle standing by a dark road. In the dream, his uncle repeatedly waved his hand, signaling Matteo to stop. The dream felt urgent, and Matteo couldn't shake the unease it left behind. Shortly after, Matteo planned a trip to visit friends in another city. As he prepared to leave, he remembered the dream and decided to delay his journey. That evening, he learned that the road he would have taken had been closed due to a serious accident. Matteo was shaken but grateful, understanding that his uncle's dream had been a divine warning. Padre Pio often reminded his followers that such dreams are not to be dismissed as coincidence. They are gifts from God, meant to protect us and guide us through life's uncertainties. By paying attention to the details and praying for discernment, we can recognize the divine messages embedded within them. The role of forgiveness in dreams. Forgiveness was a central theme in Padre Pio's teachings, and he often spoke of how dreams about the deceased could inspire acts of reconciliation. These dreams remind us of the unfinished business of the heart, words left unsaid, apologies unspoken, and relationships left fractured. A poignant example is that of Claudia, who had a strained relationship with her mother before her passing. After her mother's death, Claudia was haunted by guilt and regret. One night, she dreamed of her mother standing by a river, smiling and holding out a flower. The dream was simple, yet it filled Claudia with a sense of peace she hadn't felt since her mother's passing. Moved by the dream, Claudia prayed for her mother's soul and began to reflect on her own feelings of guilt. Through this process, she found the strength to forgive herself and reconcile with her memories of her mother. This act of forgiveness brought her a sense of healing and allowed her to move forward with greater clarity and peace. Padre Pio taught that forgiveness is not only for the departed, but also for the living. Dreams that encourage reconciliation are opportunities for spiritual growth, helping us to release burdens that may be holding us back from fully embracing God's love and purpose for our lives. Practical steps for interpreting dreams. For Padre Pio, dreams were never meant to be ignored or treated lightly. He offered practical guidance for interpreting and acting on these spiritual experiences. Pray for discernment. After experiencing a dream about the deceased, the first step is to pray. Ask God for the wisdom to understand the message and the courage to act on it. Prayer creates a spiritual bridge that allows us to connect with both the divine and the departed soul. Reflect on symbols and emotions. Pay attention to the details of the dream. Was the person at peace, or did they seem distressed? Were there specific objects, actions, or words that stood out? These elements often carry deeper meanings that require thoughtful reflection. Seek counsel from trusted individuals. Share the dream with someone you trust, such as a spiritual director or a person of faith. Their perspective can offer insights you may have overlooked and help you interpret the dream with greater clarity. Act on the message. Whether the dream calls for prayer, forgiveness, or a specific action, it is essential to respond. As Padre Pio taught, these dreams are not random occurrences, but divine opportunities to align ourselves with God's will. A call to spiritual transformation. Dreams about the deceased are more than fleeting moments of connection. They are invitations to transform our lives. Whether they bring comfort, guidance, or warnings, these dreams remind us that our loved ones remain present in our lives, interceding for us and offering spiritual support. For Padre Pio, these dreams were gifts from God, meant to deepen our faith and draw us closer to the divine plan. He believed that by embracing these experiences with humility and trust, we could find clarity, healing, and purpose. As we navigate our spiritual journeys, let us remain open to the messages of the dream world. Let us listen to the voices of those who have gone before us, trusting that their love and guidance continue to shape our lives. And above all, let us approach these moments with prayer and gratitude, recognizing them as sacred opportunities to grow in faith and draw closer to God. The eternal bond. Dreams about the deceased remind us of a profound truth. Love transcends physical boundaries and continues to connect us with those we have lost. Padre Pio emphasized that these dreams are not mere echoes of memory, but active communications from the spiritual realm. They remind us that our loved ones remain close, guiding us, interceding for us, and encouraging us to walk the path of faith. Each dream is a unique gift, a message tailored to our spiritual needs. Whether it's a call to forgive, a warning to heed, or a reminder of love's enduring presence, these dreams serve as stepping stones on our journey toward greater understanding and connection with God. Living with awareness. To fully embrace the lessons offered by dreams about the deceased, Padre Pio urged us to live with awareness. This means nurturing our spiritual lives through prayer, reflection, and acts of faith. It also means being present in our daily lives, recognizing the sacredness of every moment and every connection we share with others. Dreams are but one way the spiritual realm communicates with us. The lessons they impart about love, forgiveness, guidance, and transformation are meant to ripple outward into our waking lives. They encourage us to mend broken relationships, to make choices rooted in faith, and to seek God's presence in all that we do. A final story, a dream of closure. One final story illustrates the deep healing that dreams can bring. An elderly man named Pietro had been estranged from his son Antonio for decades due to a bitter family dispute. When Pietro passed away, Antonio carried a heavy burden of regret, feeling that he had missed his chance to reconcile. Months after Pietro's death, Antonio dreamed of his father standing in a sunlit field, holding out his arms. In the dream, Pietro spoke softly, saying, "Let it go. Be at peace." Antonio woke with tears streaming down his face. he realized that his father's message wasn't just for him, it was an invitation to release the bitterness and anger that had clouded his heart for years. Inspired by the dream, Antonio reached out to his own children, whom he had grown distant from due to the same patterns of conflict that had defined his relationship with his father. Over time, he rebuilt those bonds, creating a legacy of love and reconciliation that honored the message he had received in his dream. The power of dreams. This final story reflects the essence of Padre Pio's teachings. Dreams about the deceased are not merely about the past, they are about the future. They urge us to grow, to heal, and to move forward with faith and purpose. Padre Pio often reminded us that our spiritual journey doesn't end with death. It continues, weaving together the seen and unseen worlds in a tapestry of divine love. Dreams are one of the threads in that tapestry, offering us glimpses of the eternal and reminding us of our shared destiny in God's presence. A sacred invitation. As you reflect on your own experiences with dreams about the deceased, consider them as sacred invitations. They are moments when heaven touches earth, calling you to listen, pray, and act. They remind us that while life is fleeting, love endures, and through love, we remain connected to one another and to God. In the end, dreams about the deceased are not just about messages, they are about transformation. They invite us to become more aware, more compassionate, and more aligned with the divine purpose for our lives. By embracing these dreams with an open heart, we honor the spiritual bond that connects us to those we have loved and lost. Let us live with this awareness, treasuring the moments when the veil between worlds is lifted, and let us carry the lessons of these dreams into our waking lives. For in doing so, we not only draw closer to God, but also ensure that the love of those who have gone before us continues to shine brightly in our hearts. Closing reflection. As Padre Pio would say, pray, hope, and don't worry. Trust that the guidance you receive, whether in dreams or in the quiet moments of life, is part of God's greater plan for you. May your heart remain open to these divine gifts, and may they lead you to a life filled with faith, love, and spiritual peace.